Okay. Yeah. So good afternoon, good evening, Prof, wherever you may be. Thank you so much for making time to speak to us about who you are as a very proud and notably celebrated Carolean. The purpose of this is to get to know you better and for the world to get to know you better. And I just want to ask that you just introduce yourself to us. Who is Professor Zack Yamba?
Yes, well, I'm Zack Yamba, retired president of Essex County College, born and raised in Ghana, educated both in Ghana and the United States. And now I'm retired and basically enjoying life, but also serving the community that I find myself in on various boards.
Awesome. So where did it all start? Where were you born? I mean, who were your parents? Where did you live?
Yeah, well, my early life is a little bit complicated in the sense that I was born in Bawku, but very early on, we moved to Navrongo. And after my father passed, my godfather, who eventually adopted me at my confirmation, was really the one who raised me. So all my life was really Navrongo, and then of course the various schools that I attended. So I went to school in Navrongo, and by the time we got to middle school, maybe in the early 50s, there was a push to start a secondary school in the north. And at that time, there was only one, and that was in Tamale. It was then the government secondary school, which was started in 1951, if you can believe it,
Wow.
So St. Charles came along in 52, and St. Charles, the issue was, initially it was going to be primarily a minor seminary, but they didn't have enough students to go into the minor seminary. So they said, well, let's combine it, secondary and minor seminary, so we can have enough boys to join. And so, of course, we were the pioneers who were recruited, some from Navrongo, and of course, for the entire northern region at the time. And so there were no buildings. So we moved to Wiaga, where St. Charles started as a minor seminary and secondary school, until some construction, had taken place in Tamale. And then we moved to Tamale, where St. Charles, I guess, found its roots and became the permanent home for St. Charles.
Awesome. So how did you get to know about St. Charles, and what made you to rather than go to the government secondary school, like you mentioned, Tamasco, I guess, now called Tamasco? What made you prefer to go to St. Charles Minor Seminary Secondary School than to go to the other schools that were available to you?
At the time, all of us, at least in Navrongo, were attending Catholic schools. And so when there was a push to start a secondary school, the students that they felt qualified would be the pioneers. And so our principals, the parish priest, asked some of us to go there, because at that time, even the whole of Navrongo, there was only one boy who had gone to Damasco, and that was in 1951. So in order to increase the pool, they recruited us from both Navrongo, Bolga, Bawku, some from Tamale, some from Wa, and the entire what was then the northern territory. And then, of course, Damasco had limited enrollment. St. Charles was also going to have limited enrollment, but they thought that would increase the pool. So we were recruited to go to St. Charles. So that's how it all began.
Wow. So how was, do you still remember your first day in school? How was the atmosphere like? How were your teachers?
If you recall, St. Charles didn't have any buildings. So I'm not sure exactly. They probably borrowed some old elementary school buildings in Wiaga. And they said, you're going to be here temporarily. Yeah. And, it was just rough going. But, we had a different attitude, because our focus was education, and we didn't hear too many complaints. You had to fend, for yourself to some extent. And I remember sometimes on the weekends, if there was no meat, sometimes the priest will go hunting and bring some deer, and that was
Wow, amazing.
yes, oh yes, yes, but the good thing about St. Charles also is that we had that mixture. We had the minor seminary group, but also there were some who were preparing for major seminary. And again, at the time, there was no seminary in the north. So anybody who wanted to be a priest in the north had to go to Amisano. So they said, we need to establish one. So they said, okay, so the older boys who were ready for major seminary, they had finished elementary, middle school. There was no secondary school that in those days. So they were with us. So we had a big age gap. But of course, once St. Charles was established, then so was St. Victor's. So the younger ones who went to St. Charles, and then the older ones who were ready for the priesthood exclusively went to St. Victor's in Tamale.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That was amazing. So do you still remember the crop of teachers you had? Were they all Reverend fathers and Reverend sisters, or you had a crop of lay people teaching you at that time?
We did not have any lay people. They were all priests. They were all priests who were the teachers. The one who stands out, of course, we had Paul and Ken Haskew, the two brothers. In fact, Ken is buried in Tamale. When he was sick and they sent him back to England, he said he wanted to come back to Ghana to die and be buried there. So he's buried on the grounds of St. Victor's Seminary. But the two of them were some of our earlier teachers. And then, of course, the late, Bishop Akanlu. And then, of course, the late Cardinal Derry. They were the older generation, and they were already priests. So they were our early teachers. So they were all priests at the time. They came from Canada, they came from England. I think primarily, and of course, some came from France.
Amazing, amazing. So, I mean, thinking of the future, in our time, we had Reverend fathers, Reverend sisters, and a lot of our teachers were actually lay people. So what would be your take? Do you think that is a good mix to have just the religious teaching us, or you rather have both the religious and lay people in a mixed teaching in St. Charles?
Oh, I think the mixture, but I think you also have to recall when we started, we didn't have too many of our own locals who were graduates of colleges and universities.
Right.
So that was the issue. And so, of course, the highest education they had was those who went to the major seminary, which for all intents and purposes is equivalent to your baccalaureate and master's degrees. So that's where most of our professoriate came from. The rest were basically elementary, teachers. They were not secondary. But clear that mixture would have been fine. But of course, I think because they had dubbed it minor seminary, we didn't even have nuns teaching us. They were all, male fathers.
Oh, yes. Wow. Yes. Fantastic. Amazing. Yes. Amazing. Yes. Are there notable moments or notable friends? Or, I can share with you that my time, there were some notable moments, how we were stealing each other's kinky balls and stealing each other's black doors and vengeance and all that nice stuff. Are there some funny moments you want to share?
I think the one that stands out for me anyway, I think I must have been either in Form 3, thereabouts. And then, of course, the mandatory early morning mass, 6 o'clock and so on. And I remember distinctly, so some of us decided we were going to play a prank on, the late, Bishop Akanlu, who was in charge of making sure, we got up, got ready, for mass in terms before classes and breakfast and what have you. So we decided this time around, we were going to get up earlier than required, and then make our best as though we were in. And then we stayed outside and hid to see what he would do. So of course he came around, said, wake up, wake up, wake up. And of course, to 3 boys, nobody was moving. So he was so mad. So he kicked, and of course he kicked bricks that we had laid. Well, after the punishment, and in those days, part of the punishment is that you run around, almost like 7 days in the afternoon in the hot sun, round, the facilities to teach us a lesson. So that was the only prank. I don't think we pulled any more pranks after that.
Oh, that's a good one. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay.
Yes.
Let's migrate from St. Charles. So what happened next after St. Charles? What did you do next?
After St. Charles, we finished Form 5. And again, part of it is a progression, and I always find myself almost like in a pioneer role, like my group. Again, there was no lower upper 6 in the north. We were the pioneers. When we finished, to go to upper 6, you had to go to the south. You know, but there was a year gap. And because there was a year gap, we took the test, and those who wanted to be teachers, they said, okay, fine, we're supposed to go to tech. But the year was supposed to go to tech in 1958. That's when Winneba was established as a teacher, training college, and then later on a university. So we went to Winneba for 1 year. And then during that year, of course, you had to take the exams for the sixth form and so on. So the sixth form was established at Tamasco. So they said, well, we wanted some northern boys to populate the sixth form as a pioneer class in Tamasco. So I left Winneba and then came to Tamale, and we became the pioneer group for the upper 6 at Tamasco. And
wow.
Then, and after Tamasco finished, and again, there was a choice, either to go to Legon in those days, or go to the military academy, or go overseas in terms of studies. And Bishop Akanlu then convinced my parents that, they really wanted me to go overseas, to go to a Catholic university. So that's how come, I left the United States. They were not too crazy about the Army. Some of my colleagues, when we finished, of course, they had gone to the South. Some had gone to Mawuli, some had gone to Adesidal, some had gone to Prempeh, and some joined the military and went to the military academy in Sandhurst.
Amazing. What is touching is how even the church, the bishops, the priests played an important role in your professional choices, speaking to your parents about the choices you had.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think we have that these days with us. Do you think that is something we are missing as part of the key ingredient of our legacy in St. Charles?
Well, we are, but I think what happened also is that I think the relationship between the parents and the priest community or the Catholic Church was much closer. And so for all intents and purposes, like anything else in society, your teachers, in this case, they were, the priest, your parents, part of our culture was listen to your teachers. And so they will come and talk to our parents. The other thing that happened, and I don't know whether it's still going on or not, there was really not a big celebration, separation between the parish priest or the teachers and the parishioners. After Mass, in Navrongo in particular, we all went and ate together. They drank with us, we celebrated all the various things, and they'll come to the house sometimes, even during mealtime. They'll go to your house and eat. Even though you were in boarding school, they'll go to your house and eat, and I'm sure if you misbehave, they'll tell your parents.
Tell your parents.
Yeah. So it was a different type of relationship.
That's right.
Obviously, you hope that that type of relationship can continue, but unfortunately, societies across the world, things change, things move on, and it's really not what it was. Now, granted, in our time, we look at it as idyllic and so on, but today's modern generation will say, life was too strict. Why should your parents or even the priest be so involved in terms of your life? But they were. And they guided. But in addition to that, I think one of the things they did for us in those days, Bishop Akanlu, Monsignor Abate, Cardinal Derry, and then years later on, Bishop Kuyabaya, they were able to get a lot of scholarships for students from the North to go to university. Some went to university, some went to Europe, some went to Canada, some went to England, some even came to the United States. So they provided a lot of scholarships, and part of it is that while they themselves were studying overseas for their masters and doctorate or whatever, they try to open doors with the universities to try to get these universities to provide scholarships by telling them, look, we have some, bright young men, from our region, and could you help them with scholarship to come and study, obtain their bachelor's and master's degrees and so on.
Wow, fantastic. So after your studies in US, what did you study in the US?
Well, I studied, English language and linguistics. And of course you do French minor, but of course in those days there was in Charles, the education was basically classical. You have your religion classes, level history, you have your basic history, which was primarily European. You had occasional African history, but not much. Basically it was European history, particularly England. And then of course your language, English, French and Latin was a requirement across the board. So there was really, it wasn't a matter of choice. And it really, for us in a way, it formed a very strong foundation in terms of the structure of the language.
Yeah. Fantastic. And then you went on to be a professor as a career path.
Right. And then, but very soon in my career, probably around about 1970, I gravitated towards more educational administration and management.
Okay.
Yes. And then in 72, I became the department chair. And in 1974, again at Essex, I became dean of the faculty. But just to go back a little bit in terms of my, I guess that's Providence. When I came to Essex, my group, it was a new institution being founded. We were the pioneers as far as professoriate there. Yes, administration.
Wow, you seem to be a pioneer of a lot of things.
Yeah, because in New Jersey, while other states had the notion of community colleges, New Jersey really did not. They had the traditional 2-year college, 1 or 2 schools, or some of the 4-year schools may have a 2-year component, but the community college concept and the philosophy underlying it really was not. So in 1968, Essex was one of several years later on. There were 19, within about 3 years, 4 years that were founded in New Jersey. So Essex was one of those in 1968 that opened up.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. And then you played a key role in establishing it and then ended up running it for a couple of years.
Yes. And I was fortunate. And so I was faculty dean in 74. And in 1980, I became president, and I stayed from 1980 to 2010.
This is really heartwarming. I mean, you would have thought that in the 1980s, the news we hear about the US was on race. I mean, the African were not given a chance to do anything, prominent. And you happen to be a pioneer of a college and a president of a college. I mean, it's almost like impossible. Like, it looks like a very odd possibility. How did that happen?
Well, I think, it was providence, maybe being at the right place at the right time, and of course, being prepared. But again, it was not all easy sailing, because Essex opened in 68. And then by the time I became president, we've already had about 4 presidencies in terms of, a year or two through student demonstrations, public outcry, conflicts, political conflict, and they would either, sack them or they would leave on their own. And so there were occasions, I think, back in the late 70s, when there was a chance, for me to be president. And again, there were some issues, and the issues were, he wasn't born here, he's an African, and the whole sort of stuff that you hear, that we're not too sure whether we want an African, to lead this institution. Would prefer African American, somebody who was born here, and can he understand the needs of our students? But I think after 2 other presidents, they simply said, okay, we're not making any headway here. So maybe let's see what the African can do.
Let's give him a chance.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
And then it was, and at the beginning, I encountered a lot of opposition, but the opposition wasn't so much in terms of after I became president. I think the opposition was more in terms of some of the issues that I had to deal with. And that's what, in your information to me, you talk about some of the challenges. What were some of the challenges? Financial difficulties the institution was facing, accreditation and licensure issue. There were threats that we may lose, regional accreditation, standards. Faculty members were being badgered so they couldn't uphold the standards. We had students who decided that they were not going to be coming to class, but they expected to get high grades.
Wow.
So all these things. So when I came in, and then of course there was a whole lot of political interference in the management of the college, where people wanted to appoint their friends as professors, friends, administrators, or political cronies. And so when I came, I had to tackle all of these things. Fortunately, I had a lot of support, and I said, no, we are not going to do that. That, of course, that did not please the political group.
Everyone, exactly.
They were not. And two, and the students who were not performing, the philosophy of the Essex then and now is that we will give you the opportunity according to the law. We're not going to measure you by your deficit. We're just going to measure you by how much effort you put in to improve, your lot and get a degree. So my philosophy, and people supported me in that, was if you are not going to put in the effort, then you're wasting our time, you're demoralizing everybody, you're wasting natural resources, and other people can gain from this education if you're not interested. So we had to dismiss about 300 students.
Wow.
Oh, yes. And there were protests, they wanted to hang me.
Oh dear, I can imagine. That is always the thing about leadership, right? The hard choices.
Yeah.
Hard choices. But you see, you left a big legacy for them, and I'm sure they have you to thank for it down the lane. Yeah. Wow. So now you're retired. You are retired, and I'm not sure you are retired. I'm sure there are still other things that you do to keep you active professionally.
Yeah, I am. I mean, in the sense that in fact, this year I'm going to be stepping off a lot of boards. Because even after I left Essex, I stayed as a foundation member on the board. Fundraising, various activities, and then of course I still serve. And again, I'm going to step down from that. A board member of Seton Hall University. I'm a board member there. Foundation, non-profit foundation, that I belong to, Victoria Foundation within the city of Newark. And then of course there is another college in Brooklyn. I'm a board member there. And and then within, much closer to home, there's a Ghanaian group of medical professionals, the Ghana Association of Medical Aid. I'm a board member there. I'm advisor to them. And what they do is that they raise funds, and every year they get volunteers, doctors, nurses, medical professionals, and others to go to one of the villages in Ghana and provide free medical service for about 2 weeks.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so they do that, every year, and again, it's something that they do. And in addition to other organizations that have volunteered some of my services, lend my voice, lend my support to whatever they are doing. Yeah. But this year, I told most of them, it's time for me to step down from these activities. They need some new, younger, more energetic blood to work with them.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, my heart is really warmed when I hear about what you're giving back to Ghana. I mean, there's a lot of talk about Ghanaian education standards going down, but the multi-track system, red, green, blue, and they seem to be losing it. People are doing well, and others are doing very badly in terms of a majority. Right. I mean, wouldn't your expertise be quite invaluable to the Ghanaian education ministry? And if he had a chance, probably they will look at this video or YouTube video later. If he had a chance to talk about how we can improve our standards in Ghana, what advice will you have for them?
Well, I think my first advice is that I think Ghana should not jump to any innovation that comes along. I think Ghana has to be able to develop its own unique type of education, unique in the sense that what is good in the national interest, what advances Ghana. Yes, we inherited a system from Britain, but like anything else, how do we make that our own? Because there are certain things in that program that are really not meant or beneficial to Ghana. Because if you recall, even in the traditional way of education in Ghana, it was really to educate and provide, I guess,
a workforce, work labor.
Exactly. But Ghana's labor force in terms of higher education or even education was really we're preparing philosopher kings to sit at the top, not to dirty our hands. That has to change, because we have to get more involved in applied education, beneficial. The universality of education under Nkrumah is very laudable, to the point whereby, in the post-independence, for about 5-6 years after independence, really, I think the quality of education was being leveled regardless of where you went to school. And then suddenly taking some kind of a turn for the worse. So clearly, we need educational leadership that is visionary, that is committed, that is not bending to the political whims based on something that they heard in a seminar or somebody's imposing it on Ghana, like IMF or some of these organizations, because those impositions ultimately are not intended to benefit Ghana as a whole. And once you begin to undermine the quality of the educational system, you are dooming our society, Ghana society, to a nation of mediocrity or two societies. If you can afford it, then you send your kids to the best schools, either in Ghana or overseas. In the meantime, the sector that educates the majority of people gets poor education. And what happens to them? With poor education, what can they do? They can't build a nation. They can't develop themselves. And so you're setting yourself up for some more problems in the future. Instability in the country.
Yeah, that's so true. Well said. A nation is as good as its educated people. That's what somebody said. That's well said.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you for that. I know I didn't even ask you, give you these pre-questions before, but these are amazing wisdom that we can take on as a nation and give back to Ghana. So let's do something more relaxed. Let's talk about your personal life, your faith life, your children, your grandchildren.
Yeah.
Do you have any great grandchildren already?
No, I have 6 grandchildren.
Wow.
6 grandchildren. They're all doing well, very well. The youngest grandchild, in fact, turned 21 last week.
Oh my goodness, your youngest grandchild is 21.
The youngest.
I could easily pass for your grandson,
And I'm pleased they are doing well. They've, finished college. They're working. I think the ones in college, of course, some will be graduating next year. The COVID, they're doing things remotely, but it's kind of a major setback for all of us, in the world, for that matter. But so far we are pleased they are doing well. God has blessed me, with those. And of course, in life, you have your tragedies, and everybody is faced with that. It's tough to lose a wife and then also to lose a son. But, when you look at it, you say to yourself, well, still feel blessed.
Yeah.
Feel
Sorry
blessed.
to hear that. Yeah. Sorry to hear that. Yeah. It's
But
good to feel.
yeah, and part of it also, of course, I'm pleased in the sense that, God has given me, put me in the place where during my career at the college, I was able to open a lot of doors, to cousins, extended family members, or generally, people from Ghana, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, even North Africa, wherever, we try to provide them with scholarships and whatever support they can. And because of that, I think we've touched a lot of lives. And that is really heartwarming, when I hear from people. They may say, well, you don't remember me, but, I came and somebody brought me to your office and I couldn't afford tuition and I got a scholarship. I don't even know who they are.
Wow. These are the things you meet them sometime when you get to heaven. They're like, well, this is your place of glory. And you're like, I don't even remember who you are.
That's right.
That's so heartwarming.
I think all of it also started in Ghana, and in terms of, some of the ethos that's in Charles, implanted in us in terms of to be of service. Now we talk about, servant leaders. Basically, in St. Charles, in those days, the education, apart from the academic, was for us to be servant leaders. Not to grow up, not to lord it over people, not to look down over people, but to be of service.
Yeah, it was so the same even at my time. Remember that you are made to serve. I remember almost every priest will tell you that you are made to serve. You are made to serve. Yeah. Amazing. So I take it that you are still a Catholic, and you go to church, you serve mass and all that.
Yes, I do. I do that. Wow. And in fact, what I sent to you today, I don't know. He raised me after my natural father died, so he was my godfather, but also the one who raised me. And in fact, he's in his 90s now, and but he was commissioned by the Catholic Church to do that statue of the Virgin Mary, for St. Victor's Seminary.
Wow.
Yeah.
I saw the statue. It was really amazing. It was immaculately done. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I think he did that in 1954.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much. I think we're going to wrap it up now, but I just want us to also share some interesting things. Like in all your career life, your personal life, what thing do you think, what was the most important decision that you make? Like that you think that this was really something that I'm most proud of. I can't thank God enough for.
Well, I've been blessed with so many things. And naturally, of course, when I look at Essex and the growth and being able to put up, at least with the support of the public, physical education building, health science building, technology building, student center, and of course, establishing the Africana Institute that the Otumfuo came to inaugurate for us, in the early 2000. Yeah. Wow. So those are really things I'm really proud of. And then, of course, I'm also grateful, for the recognition that I've gotten from, Seton Hall, from Rutgers University, and in fact, UDS honored me with an honorary doctorate, in the 20, and then of course inducted into the Athletic Hall of Fame. But while this may be looked at personal, but I feel that, I'm grateful, and God has been, kind to me, and I really shouldn't have much to complain about.
Amazing. That's such a legacy. I mean, it's so encouraging to us, and we have big shoes to fill. I don't know whether I can build an Africana center and ask to ever come and inaugurate this. Just one of them is like a dream for me. That might be, I don't know, unless God makes it possible, it's almost impossible to achieve. That is amazing, Prof. That's great. And the converse part of that question, people wanted me to ask, if there is anything in your life, is there anything in your life that you think that you could have done differently?
Well, it is tough. Life takes its ups and downs, Not, I can't think of anything that I would have done differently. Perhaps, you know, I could have been more proactive in terms of the educational system in Ghana, but there were circumstances that prevented that. So, you know, while I would have liked to do more, but you can't do it on your own.
That's right.
Your own, you know, because I made several forays and so on, and that, you know, to the point where I simply said, okay, fine, you do what you can, you know, you send books, you send computers, you know, to UDS, to the Catholic University in Sunyani, even sent some computers to the Islamic school in Accra, you know, but inability to really be more involved in the system. Yeah, you know, it's a regret, but you know, it's one of those things, and it's not a fatal regret. It's one of those things that you wish you could have done more.
I think you already did enough. Yeah, sending those computers to those schools at that time was an eye-breaker for me. I never saw a computer until I went to the Kumasi Technical Training University, Kumasi Polytechnic it was called. That was the first time I actually saw a computer, you know, and you can imagine. So, I mean, opening their eyes to these computers at that time was such a blessing. I'm sure you blessed more than you ever thought you would. So thank you so much for this. You can only do your part, right?
Okay, that's perfect. You know, I really appreciate, you know, the time taken to do this, and again, as I said, you know, along the way, you know, people have helped me, and I don't even know who they are, because when I came, again, you know, there were not too many, you know, Ghanaians, at least in this part, back in the 60s, you know, but people supported me. So for that, and I don't know half of them. So I said to myself, well, maybe part of the thing was that you also do for others.
You pay it forward.
You have to know or see them.
Pay it forward. So before we leave, what is your final advice, your final thoughts for us, the young ones, I mean, the SCOBA community, the St. Charles community, the administrators, the bishops, the teachers, the students, and the future St. Charles family? What is and generally, what is your advice to Ghanaians, to Americans, to Canadians, people working here, from what is your final words for them?
My final word is that whatever you are doing, do it to the best of your ability. Don't be distracted by the naysayers or by the people who are saying, what are you working so hard for? What rewards are you going to get for that? I think you should just stay focused, but above all, you know, have that inner faith in yourself where you are not judgmental or envious of what other people's positions or wealth is. Just have that within you. And then have an open heart to help others who are in need and happen to come your way.
Wow. I can't add anything more to that. Thank you so much, sir. Really appreciate you. You have a blessed day.
Thank you. Okay. All right. And have a wonderful weekend too. All right.
Thank you, sir. Bye, Prof.
All right.